Please, our guests will be invited now. Silence, please.
Greatest Nigerian students.
Praise.
Greatest Papa. Greatest Bobo. Greatest PC. Okay. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Good day, lecturers. I'm Aurora from International Relations Department. I'll be giving the citation of our next speaker today in person of Dr. Adekunle Alaye. Dr. Adekunle Alaye is a fellow of the Council for the Development of Social Science and Research in Africa. He holds a Master of Philosophy and Doctor of Philosophy PhD in political science from the University. Wow! He has written and presented papers in reputable journals at both local and international conferences to include a trip announced by the Swiss government for a paper presented at the 10th annual conference of the Africans based in Europe, held in Zurich, Switzerland in April. The organization and the third world countries Skill Conference held in Berlin, Germany, September 2013. Global Civil Society and Heritage Protections UNESCO Conference in January 2013 held in Porto, Germany. Dependence and underdevelopment of Nigerian economy, article of the Global Journal of Politics, Law and Research, United Kingdom, among other publications. He won a UNESCO scholarship to Germany in 2012 for a postgraduate program and a British scholarship to the United Kingdom in 2016. As a chartered broadcaster in Cardiff, Dr. Alaye is a senior broadcaster and political communicator. He has broadcasting AQA Britain from Cardiff College, Wales in 2007. He has been practicing with some comfort radio and television stations to include the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State, BCOS in Ibadan, Ogun State Television, OGTV, One City FM, Root FM, and currently with Humanities FM, all in the city of Abeokuta. The Doctor of Political Science is currently a lecturer at the Department of Political Science, Christian University, Abeokuta, Ogun State. Ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, let's welcome Dr. Adekunle Alaye.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Allow people to pass this side.
Thank you. Great Nigerian students. And the greatest of the greatest of the greatest Nigerian students. Greatest Saka. Greatest Sogo. Greatest Saka. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. I'm very glad to be here. Great this occasion. Can we be quiet? Please, let's continue to get our peace.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I want to appreciate the management of this great institution for the opportunity, the provost of this great institution, the management, deans of the faculties, head of departments, lecturers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I have a topic here. Accidentally, this topic is one of the seasoned topics. I will appreciate if we can be very quiet so that we can rub minds together as individual Nigerians. It is a topic that is germane. It's titled Credible Elections, Path to Democratic Consolidation in Nigeria's Fourth Republic. In other words, what this means is that for you to talk of democracy at all, there are some specific features, there are some specific ingredients, there are fundamental factors that are considered to be the prerequisites for any country that is claimed to practice democracy. To this very large extent, election is a very sacrosanct factor that determines the democratic dispensations or the democratic practice of any country. If you do not have election, whether a horrible election, a beautiful election, free and fair elections, whatever type of elections, regardless of the adjective to qualify the elections, the most important thing is that it must be an election. It must what? It must be an election. Before the Fourth Republic, you know, Nigeria started the First Republic between 1960 to 15th of January 1966, when the military truncated the very first republic. Then, what did we have? We had a 13 years of military rule from the 15th of January 1966 up to the 1st of October 1979. From that of Aguiyi to General Yakubu Gowon to Murtala Muhammad handed over. He was murdered anyway, and his transition government continued by Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, who later handed over to a democratically elected president on the 1st of October 1979. And that was when Nigeria embarked on the Second Republic. And the Third Republic was in 1992, which later erupted into the June 12th crisis. What we had in the Third Republic was what we call diarchism. The Third Republic was the combination of both military and civilian government. In other words, General Ibrahim Babangida, retired, was representing military personality and with civilian governors and an existing National Assembly. So, in political science, we refer to the conglomerations of two existing different two personalities, military and civilian, as diarchism. So, until then, after the June 12, of course, Babangida stepped aside. We had the interim government. Later, it was kicked out by Sani Abacha. And by The 7th, that was 17 November 1993. By 29th of May 1999, Nigeria embarked on the 4th Republic. I've just tried to give you a kind of background to the Nigerian democratization from the First Republic. So the topic has to do with the 4th Republic. Since the inception of the Nigerian 4th Republic in May 1999, Nigeria's electoral and political landscape has fallen from par to below par, has moved from violence to greater violence. The level and magnitude of electoral and political violence has risen, and the political elites have often converted poverty-ridden, unemployed Nigerian youth into a ready-made machinery for the perpetration of electoral violence. Distinguished Nigerian students, I want you to please listen to me very well. You cannot have a very smooth election. You cannot have a free and fair election in any country that is robbed of poverty. Nigeria today is described as the poverty capital of the world, even though some Nigerians will still refer to Nigeria as a God's-own country. But the unfortunate thing is that the combatant bourgeoisie, that is the Nigerian political leaders, whom we have looked upon to as our leaders, what they have succeeded in doing is to weaponize poverty. And any political system that has weaponized poverty will find it very difficult to have a free and fair election. Because of the state of unemployment, because of the challenges of underemployment, Nigerian leaders have succeeded by turning Nigerian youth to a ready-made machinery for political violence. They use some of them as thugs. They use some of them as miscreants, political miscreants. And most of the time, what we have in Nigerian election has always been with political violence. So, you can't be talking of a credible election where you weaponize poverty. You cannot be talking of a credible election where poverty has become an endemic circumstance. And that is why most of the time, even when you say you want to tackle or you expect a free and fair elections, you will still end up having issues just because of the fact that there is poverty in the land. Elections are critical aspects of the democratic framework, the governing modern political societies. Elections serve as instruments of political choice, mobilizations, and accountability. In the context of liberal democracy like ours, that has become the most popular form of democracy in a unipolar world, elections are to facilitate the smooth transition from one civilian administration to the other and help to facilitate the existing and legitimizing sitting government. The just concluded election in Nigeria, even though A lot of people have criticized, a lot of people were indifferent to the election, that some describe it as the worst election so far. Some have said it was about the best election so far. I want you to understand one thing about election. One of the fundamental features of any election, or one of the best ways to qualify any election, is by using the word relative. The election that is considered to be the worst in Nigeria may be the best election in Togo. The election that is considered to be the best in Nigeria may be the most horrible election in Canada. So, for you to consider any election at all as the best election, as the freest election, you need to also consider the type of political system. You need to consider the enabling environment. There are things you need to put into consideration. Take for instance, a lot of people have criticized the just concluded election. And one of the reasons was that INEC, which is meant to be the umpire of election or electoral process in Nigeria, has differed completely from the promises, from the basic things he highlighted before the election, such as using the biometrics, having the election piled from Divas, the IRF. A lot of people have criticized the incongruous use of some of these electoral equipment. Therefore, some Nigerians lost interest completely in exercising their civic duties. They lost interest completely from participating in any further election. Some did not see this election as a credible one. However, some will still come up to defend and tell you that, oh, come on, this was about the election where we had little or no political violence. Some will tell you that this was the election where some quite number of people maintained their stance and they were orderly. There was little or no snatches or snatch of boxes, ballot boxes here and there. So it also depends on how the individual look at the election. It is a stricter sense. There can never be a democracy without election. There can never be a democracy without election. Transition economicals the countries today, we are continuing to reveal that democracy is possible without election. Huntington, one of the scholars of political science, points out that a political system is democratic to the extent that it is most powerful. Collective decision makers are selected through fair, honest, and periodic elections in which candidates freely compete for votes and in which virtually all the adult population is eligible to vote. Huntington further stated that in its proper sense, election is a process of selecting the officers of representatives of an organization or group by the vote of its qualified members, according to Wallis 2007, and information defined elections as the process of elite selection by the mass of the population in any given political system. Elections provide the medium by which the different interest groups within the bourgeois state can state and resolve their claims to pass through peaceful means. An election therefore determines the rightful way of ensuring that responsible leaders take over the mantle of power. Look at that sentence. Election simply means that responsible leaders are expected to take the mantle of leadership. The election ordinarily simply means that responsible leaders are expected to take the mantle of leadership. I put a question to the audience. Who can be best described as responsible leaders? Whom do we call a responsible leader? Has Nigeria always been lucky to have responsible leaders? Hello? Has there ever been a time that Nigeria was lucky to have responsible leaders? So we have always been having what? Irresponsible leaders? Hello? Think twice before you answer the question. Does that mean since the Fourth Republic? Hello, can you listen to me, please? Does that mean since the Fourth Republic, from Chief Olusegun Obasanjo as the first president of the Fourth Republic, late Umaru Musa Yar'Adua as the second president of the Fourth Republic, former President Goodluck Jonathan as the third president of the Fourth Republic, President Muhammadu Buhari as the President Muhammadu Buhari as the fourth president of the Fourth Republic. Does that now mean, hello guys, does that now mean since the Fourth Republic that we have had 4 different presidents in the Fourth Republic? None of the 4 presidents have never been responsible. Is that your opinion? Okay. Late Umaru, somebody said something sometimes that it's as if Nigeria was placed under a curse. That most times when we want to have good leaders, they really don't live too long. Murtala Muhammad was shot dead on the 13th of February 1976. He ruled for very few months, 6 months. Umaru Musa Yar'Adua meant well for Nigeria, but he took ill and later died in 2010. Do you think they really caused Nigeria, or Nigerians are the problem of themselves? So, if my opinion now is that Nigeria since the Fourth Republic has never had any responsible leaders who had elected these leaders. Well, I want to talk like an academic here. In other words, I will disagree. Because you may not have your facts and figures. I'm quarreling with the person that has just come in now. He's my very good friend, but I'm quarreling. one of those people you should hold responsible for Nigerian problem. He's a political scientist. What has he been doing? You're welcome, sir. So, if to you now, we've never had any responsible leader. You and I are then guilty. My young colleague there just mentioned something. He said, INEC has been selecting president for us. Is National Bola Ahmed Tinubu a selected president or an elected president? I don't want us to go into that debate. I don't want us to go into that debate. But ordinarily, hello, I must be honest with you. As youth of this country, you need to take up the responsibilities in ensuring that Nigeria returns to an ideal democratic state. Somebody will also say, how do we have the youth? Would there be a chance? Would they be given the opportunity? The problem with Nigeria is not about Nigeria itself. For the political scientists, you must have known much about imperialism and imperial sloganeering. Some critics have argued that the political system left behind by some colonies were distorted. The colonialists deliberately or consciously left distorted political system and such that these their former colonies will remain continually subjugated. They will remain continually subservient, and they will always have reason to come to them. But I tell you, even though there is political imperialism, there is economic imperialism, there is cultural imperialism, there is educational imperialism. As individuals, what do we do to help this nation? I know some of you here, about 80% of you, even though if you are in the final year in Harvard here, and you have an admission to one of the Canadian universities, will you stay back? You will go for Canadian admission, even though you are in 300 or 400. You see what I'm saying now? That is part of the problem. You heard when they were reading my citations the other time. I've been to more than 7 European countries on scholarship. I have studied there, and I'm back in Nigeria. I was on a British scholarship to the United Kingdom. I was on a Swiss scholarship to Switzerland. I was on a UNESCO scholarship to Germany. Look, for those who have been there before, they will tell you that the best way you can be appreciated is to come over there on 3 things. Hello, are you listening? Because I know some of you are on Japa now. Some of you are thinking on Japa. I hope you heard what British government just said during the week. So if you want to Japa, you better think twice. British government have just come up with a new policy. If you must travel to Britain now, there is nothing like student visa to cover the entire family anymore. It's an insult. Hello? It's a what? An insult. Yoruba will say, that's it's an insult. It's just because they know your problem. So does that not mean that if Britons want to come to Nigeria, Nigerian embassy will deny them to come to Nigeria and sojourn with their family? I'm asking you. So why won't Nigeria or Africans enjoy the same thing? You can only be respected by a European in 3 ways. 1, you go on holiday. You go on tourism. Well, it's not all Nigerians that can afford that. We have different categories, but they will respect you if you do so. You go on skills. That's what they call PR, permanent residence. Some Nigerians have gotten jobs before they leave. They will come and pick you from the airport. They will respect you. And the very third thing is, if you must travel at all, you go on student visa. I lived like a big man while I was studying in Germany. And I was highly respected by German professors. That is because I didn't jump. I hope you guys know the meaning of this jumper. Jumper is not just that you are traveling. Jumper is more or less like an euphemistic means of illegal migration. Some people have said, oh, I don't care. As long as I make my money. As long as... If I see one, look, if you travel abroad for a purpose, fine. If you get a job, Nigeria is not really promising. I won't deny you of going. If I had gotten a career job back in Germany, I would have stayed back. But die Sprecher kann ich gut Deutsch, kann ich gut Arbeit. Die Sprecher kann ich gut, ist nicht kein Arbeitgeber. Sorry, I'm not speaking in tongues, I'm speaking German. What that means is that you can only get a career job if you speak a flawless German. And if you cannot, you either engage yourself with menial jobs. And if I had gone on Japa, I wouldn't have mind. But somebody who has been working with professors, seated in the midst of distinguished academia, now ended up watching toilets. What you don't realize is that the people of a European is much more offensive than the people of Africans. If you don't know, you better know today. Why? Because they eat a lot of silly things. And that is what we call cultural imperialism. A lot of Nigerian youth of today are now cultivating everything about the whites. And you want Nigeria to develop when you do not appreciate your own culture. There is colonial language. I'm not supposed to stand there and be speaking in English. I'm also guilty. That is part of the language imperialism. If I come here and be speaking in my dialect, you look at me as an unsophisticated person, a chauvinist. And the whites will always be happy about that. You see me on time, while I'm sweating like a Christmas goat. And that is still part of the cultural act of imperialism. I have a lot of talented, gifted ones among you here that can make some good beats, good clothes, and all whatever. But trust me, the moment you make it and you write made in Obada, nobody will patronize you. True of us. And if you have made the products in one remote village in Sokoto and you write made in Paris, hello? Will they patronize you or not? These are part of the problems. Some of you will prefer shawarma to amala, dudu and obegiri. Isn't it? That is part of the new colonialism. They have affected you to the extent of food. And that is why you always have a problem when you go to restroom. Because you don't eat good diets. You can't continue to blame Nigerian government at all times. As individuals, we always have roles to play. And that is the essence of all what I'm talking about. Democracy, whether it is the worst or the best, it must happen in any ideal political system. Churchill, former Prime Minister of Great Britain, he says, and I quote, even though democracy may be the worst, it is still the best among its peers. Churchill says, even though democracy may be the worst, it is still the best among its peers. What that simply means is that you can see democracy as the worst, but the worst democracy is far, far better than the best military governance. Some of you are Indomie children. Hello, two of us. How many of you were born during the military era here? Apart from your lecturers. If you were born during the military era, raise up your hands. Oh yeah? You are all Indomie children. So you may not understand the bitterness of military government. You may not appreciate the beauty of democracy. You can ask your uncles and brothers or your parents how the people were being flogged in the Ikorodu Road during their Buhari's administration at Nidiago. You can ask your parents, have you heard about war against indiscipline? Why? Oh, go and read about it. Have you heard about late General Sani Abacha? You've heard about Abacha? What do you know about him? He was the best Nigerian head of state, have you? Eh? He's better than Tinubu, have you? Hello? Let's be practical here. We have said the worst democracy is better than what? The best military government, isn't it? Now, let's be practical. Will you say Abacha was better than Buhari as a democratic president? Eh? Even though you were not born then anyway, you must have heard about the despots and the dictatorial paradigm that Abacha explored to govern Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, if you must talk of any credible election in any ideal or democratic state, you must consider the following paradigm. One, there must be an enabling environment for electoral process where people will be allowed to exercise their franchise without encroaching or disrupting their interests in determining their choice of leaders. Two, Nigerians must be properly tutored and be given adequate electoral orientations. So many of us here don't care about the chairman of our local governments. We don't care about councillors of our wards. Yet, we are interested about our governors. We are interested about the president. We are interested about the vice president. Isn't it? Majority of us here do not know the names of our chairman or chairman of local government. This is the first thing we must do. We must be willing to hold them accountable. They must be willing to give their stewardship as our representatives. Three, Nigerians as individuals must be ready to cultivate the spirit of patriotism. Nigerians as individuals must be ready to inculcate or cultivate the spirit of patriotism. What that simply means is that you must be ready to see Nigeria as your own, not as the product of the Europeans. Until we can explore and appreciate all these factors that I've mentioned, we may continue to riddle within problems of election. For us to have credible elections and path to democratic consolidations in Nigeria's Fourth Republic, those factors must be mentioned. Thank you very much.
If you want clap, clap very well. If you want clap, clap very well. Look, if you don't want clap, give me a hand. But if you want clap, clap. And this is your clap. Join your hands together and celebrate now. It's not very easy.